Good evening and welcome to ILTV Weekly. I'm Steve Leibowitz and I'm joined today by two returning guests. With us are political science professor Dr. Moshe Amirav from the Hebrew University and Reserve IDF Colonel Miri Eisen. This evening we'll touch on three topics: a new and perhaps final Obama administration effort to revive the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians, the Turkish incursion into Syria, and our latest political crisis involving Transport Minister Katz and Shabbat work on the train in Tel Aviv. We'll begin with the peace process, and before examining the latest peace effort, let's look back at this comment by President Obama at the beginning of his presidency in 2009.
I have just concluded frank and productive bilateral meetings with both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Abbas. And I want to thank them both for appearing here today. I'm now looking forward to this opportunity to hold the first meeting among the three of us since we took office. As I said throughout my campaign and at the beginning of my administration, the United States is committed to a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. That includes a settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that results in two states, Israel and Palestine, in which both the Israeli people and the Palestinian people can live in peace and security and realize their aspirations for a better life for their children. I'm committed to pressing ahead in the weeks and months and years to come, because it is absolutely critical that we get this issue resolved. It's not just critical for the Israelis and the Palestinians, it's critical for the world. It is in the interests of the United States, and we are going to work as hard as necessary.
Miri, why did President Obama fail? I mean, other presidents at least got to Camp David stages, or they reached an agreement, as in the case of Jimmy Carter. Why did Obama's efforts not take off at all?
First of all, I think that there are different people involved, both President Obama himself and really his lack of experience, together with the fact that both the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli-Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in 2009 were not seeing things in the same way, and here we are in 2016, they're still not seeing things in the same way. I think that the President of the United States has enormous clout, but at the end of the day, an Israeli-Palestinian agreement, and that goes also for the Israeli-Jordanian peace treaty or the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty, you can do oh so much as the outsider. The two sides, the Israeli and Palestinian, like in the past, they're the ones who have to get past it. And I don't think that President Obama could facilitate that type of a change.
Well, Dr. Amirav, now we have this new initiative of the Obama administration. I'm not quite sure what that means. We also have the Cairo-Moscow initiative that we discussed a bit last week, and we have the French initiative. Can you make sense of all of this? Where's it going?
First of all, you have to analyze what happened in the past. I mean, why did the Americans fail after the first Camp David, where they succeeded, actually, between Begin and Sadat? I think that the main reason is that the Americans are not anymore an objective partner to a negotiation in the eyes of the Palestinians. And I think they're right.
You mean they're pro-Israel?
Yeah, they are pro-Israel, the way they see it, the way, at least I remember the time I was with Barak in Camp David, that's how the Palestinians look at it. They didn't look at Clinton as an objective mediator. He was half Zionist and half Jewish.
Didn't look like Arafat even wanted to be there. Barak had to push him in the door.
It's not only Arafat. I mean, the whole team there, they were sure that they are alone against the two giants, Barak and Clinton. So the feeling is also very important, but also the facts were like that. I mean, it was definitely, at least in this summit that I remember, that it was mutual interest of both of them, Barak and Clinton, to convey it in their way. And Arafat felt very stressed by this kind of coalition. So, but I say more than that, that the Americans are unable to bring the parties to the table. In my opinion, I think it's only the Arab League and the initiative that is going on, I think, has some chance to bring the Palestinians to the table. And if we will say yes, I think this is the best location to have peace with the Palestinians, which is the Arab League Conference of Peace. We can have the Europeans there, we can have Americans there, but the Arab League is the most important player in a future peace between Israel and the Palestinians. But that's my opinion.
Miri, we in Israel have always been wary of the idea of an Arab League initiative, although Netanyahu did say some positive words about it in recent months. Do you think that, is there anything, let me put it this way, is there anything the Obama administration can do in the last months that they're remaining in office to try to push things forward in any direction?
Well, here I'm going to disagree with Professor Amirav because I think that the Americans can make a difference. And I think that the way that they can make a difference, and it isn't about being objective or not objective, but it isn't having a clear point. I think that if the Americans did stand up in a clear way and state to both sides something that they know because of their understanding what could be acceptable, and they said, stand up and do something, I think that America still has that kind of clout, and the Arab League does not. The Arab League is not anything. The Arab Initiative with the Sauds in today's Middle East, it includes some of the moderate Sunni states, and I want to remind you when I say the word moderate and Sunni, I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, a country where I couldn't dress the way I am right now. So when we talk about what that means, an Arab initiative, I don't think that that would make it any easier right now. You need that outer force, and here I think that for Israel to come to the table, the United States has to be there. The United States can use the fact that we need them there as Israelis to come in and say, okay, we're going to be here. We're going to be there for you, Israel. Don't worry, we have your back. And they could force us and the Palestinians to do things that haven't been done. Sadly, I don't think that that's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Moshe, what the Palestinians are saying is that they have preconditions also to come to the table. They're talking about a complete settlement freeze once again. They're talking about a stage 4 prisoner release. Those things aren't going to happen. I mean, don't they know Bibi Netanyahu by now? Do they really, if they want to come to the table, they've got to come without preconditions, no?
No, but that goes for both sides. We also have some preconditions. So
what are our preconditions?
Many. Just to recognize Israel as a Jewish state is a very, very big condition I don't think they can swallow. And they will not. So, and this is a new condition. It's only in the last few years that the current Prime Minister of Israel raised it. All the other Prime Ministers, they didn't care about it at all. It was never mentioned even in any of the negotiations there were with Egypt, with Jordan, and with the Palestinians. That's a fact.
We're almost out of time in this section, but I did want to get both of you to give a reaction about what you think Israel should do about the municipal elections. I know it's not exactly on the topic of the peace process, but it looks like Hamas will win these elections. Should Israel do what it can to cancel those elections?
Not at all. They need elections. Let them do elections. Elections aren't turning them into a democracy. But at the end of the day, that's part of where they are right now. Let's see where they are. If Hamas win the elections, Steve, I want to know that. I don't think that there's anything that Israel should do to touch it. Let them do it. It doesn't mean that it will make a difference.
You agree with that?
Yes, I even think more than that, that if the Hamas will be in power on Palestine, the whole of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, they will be much more moderate than they are now. And so both of us, we're not afraid of these elections. That's okay.
All right, changing subject now. Turkey has sent military forces across the border into Syria, where they're confronting Islamic State terrorists as well as Kurdish forces. Let's hear this explanation from Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim. I believe I got it right.
Buradaki DAEŞ ve diğer terör unsurlarını bölgeden temizliyoruz ki oradaki sivil insanlar evlerinden, barklarından tekrar göç etmek zorunda kalmasın. Biz sınırlarımızın güvenliğini, vatandaşlarımızın can ve mal emniyetini %100 sağlayıncaya kadar oradaki operasyonlarımıza devam edeceğiz. DAEŞ ve diğer terör unsurlarını bölgeden çıkarıncaya kadar bu operasyonlara devam edeceğiz. Suriye'nin de toprak bütünlüğünü savunuyoruz. Bu terör örgütlerinin amacı hem Türkiye'de hem Suriye'de bölücülük yapmak, sözde akılları sıra buralarda devlet kurmak. Böyle bir hayalin peşindeler. Asla bunu başaramayacaklar. Ekim ayı sonunda yürürlüğe girmesi beklenen vize serbestisi ve geri kabul anlaşmasının mutlaka sonuçlandırılması hayati bir öneme sahiptir. Bu anlaşmaların bir şekilde yapılamaması halinde mülteci sorunu artık Türkiye'nin sınırları içerisinde değil, bütün Avrupa'yı da ilgilendirecek büyük bir bölgesel soruna dönüşme riskini içermektedir.
Miri, so Turkey finally sent troops over the border. Is their goal to push away ISIS from the border area, the Islamic State terrorists, or is it to crush the potential of Kurdish independence?
Why not do both? I think that right now Turkey finds itself as the butt end against the Islamic State. They took a stand. That stand was one that was opposed. And in that sense, yes, they're actually acting against Daesh, against the Islamic State. But don't get it wrong, Steve. They have a very deep, harsh relationship with the Kurds. They are completely opposed to any type of Kurd independence, and they are most definitely using this incursion to act against the Kurds both in Turkey, in Syria, probably in northern Iraq. And I'll remind most people who don't look at the map that they also have a border with Iran. And that's the area where the Kurds themselves are. And at this time, 100 years to Sykes-Picot, when Kurdistan did not come to be, there's no question that Turkey now has stepped in big time, mainly against them.
Moshe, the Turks have actually named this operation Euphrates Shield, presumably because Kurdish forces crossed the Euphrates River inside Syria. Many in Israel view the Kurds as natural allies of Israel, and there are very good friendly relations, even some trade between us and the autonomous area in Kurdistan. Should we be concerned about this Turkish move?
No, I think that in a broader look, we have to see the Turks as an ally, and we have to do anything we can to have them as ally. They are much more important than the Kurds or any other country in this area. The last years we did some mistakes. The Turks also did some mistakes. But if we come to terms and we will renew this alliance that was, to remind you, many years and was strong, it's of the benefit for us. The Kurds, we can have sympathy with the Kurds, but we have interest with Turkey.
Well, the U.S. has actually been backing some of the Kurdish rebels. I know that there are different groups inside the Kurdish resistance to ISIS, but they're all fighting against Islamic State. The U.S. has been supporting them. I think the CIA has been supporting one group. The Defense Department's been supporting another, two different arms of the U.S. government. So the West seems to think that the Kurds are a very important element in this fight against Islamic State.
In the realpolitik, you're going to try and support anybody who's going to be against Islamic State. Turkey has a lot more capability against Islamic State than the Kurds themselves have, and the Kurds are not yet independent. Here I agree with Professor Amirav. There's a realpolitik that says, I may like the Kurds, I may want to help the Kurds, I may feel sympathy for the Kurds, but we need Turkey. But I will differ on one point. I wouldn't say in any case. I think that Turkey has gone through an enormous political change over the last 10 years. I think that Erdogan, the AKP, the soft Muslim Brotherhood that he represents, which is a soft Muslim Brotherhood, but it is that type of a regime, is one that we need to look at. And just like with the Arab Initiative, realpolitik says yes, but it isn't in any case. I feel very strongly about the Kurdish issue because it is 100 years to when they were denied their nationhood. Here we are in a Middle East where all around us nations are falling apart and the Kurds are becoming stronger. But Steve, you already mentioned the worst enemy, sadly, of the Kurds are the Kurds. The divisions that they have within themselves that we don't usually talk about are divisions which harshly hurt what they're doing both in Iraq, against Syria, in the different areas. They're not united front together. They're not. And so in that sense, I would say right now, I would say nice, helpful, but Turkey is much stronger, much more important. Let's not underestimate the almost 80 million Turks in that bridge between Asia to Europe to the Middle East.
So here's a naive question. I mean, we have our own problems, but Israel is in a way in a unique situation in that we are sympathetic towards the Kurds and their interests. We're also have a recently improved relationship with Turkey. Could Israel somehow be an intermediary to try to bring the two sides closer so that they're not wanting to kill each other?
You have to look at the history, and the history is that we were very good friends of the Turks, not only because of the tourists that are going to Turkey. We had really vested interest with them, and I think this is what we should aim to. I mean, we have interest. This is not a small country in the area, and they can be with us. So how do you deal with it when we have this sympathy to the Kurds? We have to try and deal with it in the very pragmatic way. In politics, it means you go with the stronger one.
I would say that in realpolitik, I would hope that in Israelis' history, we would understand that we shouldn't be intermediaries. I do not think that Israel, as the Jewish nation state, where we are in the Middle East, is the one that should present itself as a mediator, not between the Kurds and the Turks and not between any of the others. I think that when we stick our finger in the pie in the Middle East, it doesn't necessarily make it any easier. So I would be very wary, policy aspect, of offering that type of service. The fact that we have on the ground, lots have on the ground. And I will remind us also that right next to Kurdistan is also Armenia, which is right next to Turkey. And that same harsh realpolitik means that the state of Israel, of all places, has not officially recognized the Armenian genocide because of relationships essentially with the Turks. You can choose either or, and I don't know how that makes us feel either.
It's a very tough one because sure. I know that here in Israel we're very sympathetic to the Armenians and to the genocide that they went through, and to not recognize it for Israel of all, and the Jewish people of all people, to not recognize an obvious genocide that took place. It's a tough one, no, Moshe?
Yeah, we're coming back to interest. And the interest of the State of Israel is to not to keep the memory or to rewrite history or to blame anyone for something that happened so many years ago. So we have to keep to our security, and in terms of security, we need Turkey. And Turkey needs us also.
All right, we're going to have to move to our final subject, which I know you're both like, because you're both from Tel Aviv. And this is a very local issue with possible political ramifications for the government. Transport Minister Yisrael Katz is under attack for allowing work on the Sabbath on the Tel Aviv rail line. Katz said he allowed the work due to public safety concerns, or as we call it in Hebrew, pikuach nefesh, the preserving of life. So, pikuach nefesh, or a slippery slope of Shabbat desecration. Miri, you actually experienced this Shabbat desecration yourself personally. Tell us about that.
I was coming back from Shabbat dinner, driving, of course, in Tel Aviv after having a lovely dinner with my greater family, like we do every Friday night. And when we come back, I always drive back and get onto Ayalon at the Shalom. And I'm driving along with my kids, and suddenly we arrive at the police barrack, the police block. And I say to my kids, "Oh, look, pikuach nefesh," because as we saw it, we suddenly remembered that the Shalom would be closed because of the events, and I drove instead on Derech Namir, which I haven't driven on for years. For me, it's clear-cut. The city of Tel Aviv is the main city where people work. HaShalom is the junction where everybody comes in. I don't even know the numbers to be able to begin to say it during the week. I drive on Shabbat. I can work on Shabbat. I can make my own choices. And to me, there's no question whatsoever that we should be able to allow these kind of things for a regular, rational country, which is the Jewish nation state and not the Jewish halacha state.
Moshe, I'm going to read something to you. This is written by Mayor Dizengoff, the first mayor of Tel Aviv, Mayor Dizengoff. He issued a city notice, number 36, against the desecration of Shabbat in public. All stores and places of entertainment must be closed from Shabbat Eve until its termination. Dizengoff explained at the time, Shabbat is our most amazing sign of national solidarity from generation to generation, and anyone who undermines it undermines the unity of Israel. Preserve the Shabbat, and it will preserve us. Don't you agree?
Yes, I agree. I'll tell you why. Because I experienced it. She has her own story. I'll tell you my story. I was for some years in charge of transportation in Jerusalem and building the roads. And they used to close, the roads near the religious areas. And I was the one who initiated. And, Teddy Kollek came to me I was in charge of this portfolio of transportation. And he said, how come? How are we going to explain it to the majority, which are not religious in this city? And then I said, and you know, I don't go with a kippah, I'm not religious, I don't go to the synagogue. But I think we have to respect it. If it's a Jewish state, we have to respect it. We have to respect it to the sense that it doesn't hurt people like me. But if we can do it in terms of and this is what this state is, it's a Jewish state. I mean, I would rather have it as a secular state, like the United States, but we are not. So we have to respect the religion, we have to respect it, the Shabbat, and there are other ways to do it. So,
But isn't there a difference between Jerusalem and what we...
No, Tel Aviv is in the same country. We have to respect it in the sense that we have to find a way and not to hurt those, even a small minority of religious people in Tel Aviv, and the majority of Jews, religious Jews in Jerusalem. To remind you, there are more religious Jews in Jerusalem today than the secular ones, as you know. So my opinion is that we can find ways not to do it in such a way as we did it in Shabbat. And since I was for many years also with transportation, I know that we can find the alternative to that. And I think we need sometimes some respect even to religion in this country. And I'm saying it as a secular.
Okay, well, that was an unexpected answer from you. Miri, here's another quote for you. This one's from Ben-Gurion. He says, "The status quo needs to be maintained. Maximum Judaism in public life, minimum interference in private life." Is that the way we're actually living?
I think that the public space right now has become a little bit more intrusive. Once upon a time, and especially in Jerusalem, one of the things that I love is that the public arena, and the same goes for Tel Aviv, everybody is there. The religious, the non-religious, the Arab, the Jew, everybody's out there in the public space. But in this case, what we're talking about is about running a country, about policy, about running a government. And here I say we have 7 days a week, and we're one of the only countries in the world where we have a 6-day school week, 6-day working week. We only have 1 day off when you don't have the traffic. Every time for the Tel Aviv Marathon, when they close Tel Aviv on a Friday morning, we talk about the traffic jams. To close the Shalom Junction for such major work on any other day would mean massive traffic jams. On the same day or a few days before that, they closed the Tel Aviv-Jerusalem road because they had to change it around. And as I say, in those sort of things, these are the places where the Prime Minister said pikuach nefesh, but the end is also politics. In the state of Israel, we have a history of several different prime ministers, as we know.
There was an electrical machine, large piece of machinery that was moved. That brought down Barak.
And there was one F-16s that
with
landed
Rabin.
15 minutes after Shabbat
That's
came
right.
in.
1999 was with Barak, and 1976 was with Rabin. Helped bring. Is this particular crisis going to bring down the Netanyahu government?
I don't think so. It's not so extreme, and everything is also interest. I mean, they don't have interest to leave the government right now, even not to have the government fall because of that. But I'm saying that we have to be, especially we, the secular in this country, much more sensitive and find other solutions. Just to remind you, we have Yirmiyahu Street in Jerusalem, which is a main street. And I closed it when I was in the Jerusalem municipality on Shabbat. And Teddy Kollek came to me and said, "How can you close it?" I said, "We'll find another way on Shabbat. We'll find another way. People, Jerusalemites, they can go in other ways." And we moved the transportation on Shabbat from this main street, Yirmiyahu, in Jerusalem. It's not such a big deal. We have to find solutions, and we can make out of everything a principle. And then we die together, and we fight together. So let's try to be practical on that issue.
I just feel badly sometimes for the public that is the poor who want to go to the beach, for example, and there's no public transportation. There's no way for people to manage with that unless they want to take taxis, which is very expensive, and it's a shame. Any final word on the Shabbat issue?
I think that I want to find that middle way, but I think that the middle way isn't me secular to the religious. I call it middle ground. And I feel that over the last 20 years, I am not watching people arriving at a middle ground. I'm seeing that moving, and that's what disturbs me.
Moving towards more restrictions?
religious,
Although
more
a lot
religious.
of entertainment sites have opened in Jerusalem, which wasn't the case when you were in the City Hall.
Valid point.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again to our guests, Reserve Colonel Miri Eisen and Professor Moshe Amirav from Hebrew University. I'm Steve Leibowitz. Thanks for being with us at ILTV Weekly.